This clip is in response to a prayer request I received from a friend on my channel who told me that a friend of hers had a daughter that was involved in an accident and needed prayer. I never intended to ever put this up on YouTube, but in light of the request, I believe that this is a great testimony to the glory of God, to His love and His mercy, and also it is a proof of the statement here in Romans 8 verse 28, which says, "We know that all things work for good to those who love God, to those called according to His purpose." So I've decided that I will put this up here as a testimony. In the picture here you see my son, my firstborn, Christopher, on the left, his brother in the middle, Eli, and their cousin Jason on the right. Christopher and Jason got along very well, and Christopher used to go and visit Jason quite frequently, and he was there for days sometimes. In the beginning, Christopher was pretty introverted, not speaking much, very, very quiet. He used to stand and never sit, and he knew the Bible. He was brought up with the Bible, but it seems that he and Jason got along very well. Jason's mom, my son's aunt, used to say, if you need a ride, just say, you need a ride. Don't walk home. Anything could happen. Well, Christopher, being 20 years old, the last thing he said to his cousin was, "Don't worry, I won't get hit by a car." Well, and as you can see, this was the outcome of that night. The injuries that Christopher received were a broken neck, brain damage, nerve damage to his for his eyes and his throat, his vocal cords, damage to his shoulder, blood in his lungs, and his right leg was shattered. He was hit by a person who was in the country illegally and didn't have a driver's license. He worked at a bar, he was drinking at the bar, and he decided to drink further in the parking lot. And when he left out of there, he took off at a high speed, and as Christopher was walking alongside the road, this person ran him down doing about 60 miles an hour. We had a power outage that night, and I heard it when it happened. I heard the squealing tires, and I heard the accident, but I didn't know that my son had just been run down. He had to have emergency surgery on his leg, or he would have lost his leg. The doctors had to drill a hole in his head and put a monitor in his head and to drain the fluid. His head swelled up very, very large, and when I saw him, I did not recognize him as my son. He was in a coma for some time, and when he came to, of course, he was disoriented, and in the beginning he thought he was in some kind of a movie. It took approximately 2 years for Christopher to actually recuperate from this accident. And I'm sure that there are those of you listening who have lost someone to an accident, a drunk driver, or some other evil of this world. And those things are never pleasant. And sometimes we wonder why God allows these things. But God does have a plan, and His thoughts are higher than ours. His ways are higher than ours. And Romans 8:28 says that all things work for good to those who love Him and who are called according to His purpose. So what this video is trying to get across is the fact that the outcome of an event sometimes turns out to be good, even though the event itself may be very horrible or tragic. When Christopher was hit by the car, it threw him into a fence post. It was a 4x4, and he struck it with his temple and broke the 4x4. So that in itself could have killed him. I knew something was wrong. Something told me there's something very, very wrong here. Something has happened. I don't know. So I couldn't really sleep, and I went outside and I spoke to police officers who were searching for evidence of what had happened, and they did not know who I was, and I did not understand that Christopher had been struck just a few thousand yards down the street. Anyway, I told them what I had heard, what I had seen, and they went and they arrested this man. So you may wonder, how could such a tragedy turn into a good thing? Here you see in this picture my son and myself, and this is at a 2008 Bible Students Convention. As you can see, you would never know by looking at Christopher or talking to him that he had ever been involved in such a serious accident. God did not heal him instantly. It took quite some time and some therapy, but eventually Christopher came through this, and I am very happy to say that he is a consecrated believer. And further, not only is Christopher a consecrated believer, but through this experience and through all the time spent with his cousin is also now a consecrated believer. So when bad things happen, if you have faith and you have a trust in God and in His promises and in His Word, you never know what the outcome might be. You see, God is able to do anything. It took much prayer, much patience, and much faith to see this outcome. And for anyone who has ever lost someone, my heart goes out to you. And for those in the world who don't believe, you might try to reconsider, because God doesn't promise something and not deliver. May you all be blessed.